Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everybody. I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor. Welcome to the February 28th meeting of the Brighton Town Board. At tonight's Town Board meeting, I will be giving the annual State of the Town message. Following the State of the Town, I will be opening our open forum. The open forum portion of the meeting is the opportunity for members of the public to share their comments with the Town Board. If you're watching us on YouTube or on our cable access channel and you would like to participate in the open forum, you're going to have to log into our Zoom meeting. Most of us have done enough Zoom for one lifetime, but if you're not sure how to log into a Zoom, go to the town's webpage and they have instructions on how to get into our meeting tonight. Of course, the town's webpage is www.townofbrighton.org. We continue to make all of our town board meetings accessible to the deaf and hard of hearing community with our ASL interpreters. I'm pleased that we have our regular interpreters, Allie and Heather, with us tonight. Thank you both very much. As a reminder, the agenda for tonight's meeting is available in the back of the room. I think we had enough copies, but it is also available for those of you that are watching us remotely on the town's website. Again, www.townofbrighton.org. I would ask that everybody rise if you are able to do so, and I'll ask Councilmember Werner to lead us in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for everybody joining us here this evening. As I mentioned, we will begin with the State of the Town. This is my 13th annual State of the Town message, and I'm proud to be here, and I'm very pleased to see a full room as we update our residents and Brighton stakeholders again this year. First, as we do at all significant events, gatherings, and meetings here, I want to first acknowledge that the town of Brighton is situated on the ancestral and traditional lands of the Onondaga tribe of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, whom we recognize and respect as the traditional custodians of this land throughout the generations. We pay our respect to Onondaga elders, both past and present, and I want to remind everyone that the history, the culture, and the traditions of the Onondaga are truly worthy of our understanding and our study. We praise those who keep those traditions alive. We recognize that the study and the understanding of Onondaga history, culture, and traditions is of ongoing importance if we are to truly understand our own history, culture, and traditions here in the town of Brighton and in our nation. We support efforts to ensure that we and future generations continue to respect and recognize the Onondaga in ways that are honest and truthful, so that in the words of Sacagawea, the great Haudenosaunee chief and orator, also known as Red Jacket, we may always together work to brighten the chain of friendship. Now, recently as I was walking on the Brickyard Trail, I ran into an old friend and neighbor, Kerry Jensen. He was coming towards me on the trail. We stopped and talked. I hadn't seen Kerry in a while. And he told me that he had been out of the country for 3 years, doing missionary work for his church. Now that he's back, he's working for a refugee group based in Buffalo. As we talked, we discussed some of the changes in Brighton since he had left. In particular, he mentioned the changes in the configuration of Elmwood Avenue, the bike lanes, Carrie, like so many others that I've talked to about that project, was happy to see the changes. And that's been the case of most of the people that I've talked to. Then we started talking about the eclipse. I know everybody knows by now, April 8th, total solar eclipse of the sun, and we have some great activities planned in Brighton. I told Carrie we were going to be holding our community eclipse celebration in Buckland Park, that we anticipated a large crowd of people, food trucks, music. We have a great band. How can you go wrong on Eclipse Day with a band called Shine, right? And I asked him who I needed to talk to at his church to see if we could use their parking lot on Westfall Road for overflow parking that day. And actually, what he told me is that now that he's back in town, he's serving himself as the community outreach representative for the church. And so with his help, and with a little bit of paperwork we still have to fill out, they have agreed to help us with parking on April 8th for the eclipse. Carrie, it's great to see you here. Thank you very much. Thank you to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for agreeing to make your facility available to us. We welcome your congregation and we welcome everyone here to join us for the eclipse. Thank you again, Carrie. These are the connections. These are the connections that make Brighton special. Brighton is a town with beautiful and diverse, inclusive neighborhoods. Brighton is a town with family businesses, businesses that are unique and make Brighton a destination for shoppers looking for something different than what they can find at the mall. Brighton has over 500 acres of town parks and miles of trails. Corbett's Glen is a gem, and apropos of my story about running to Carrie, the Brickyard Trail has proven time and time again the truth of one of my favorite sayings, that trails connect more than just places, they connect people. Brighton is a community of all of these things, but more than anything else, Brighton is a community of people, living together, working together, bridging different faiths, different backgrounds, different life experiences, connecting as neighbors to make Brighton a very special hometown. Tonight's State of the Town address is an opportunity to reflect on some of our collective accomplishments over the past year. They are significant, and they lay the groundwork for our future aspirations for Brighton. Brighton is the most diverse town in Monroe County, and probably one of the most diverse towns in the state of New York. That's a great attraction for our community. It's a great benefit for our community. People come to Brighton because of our diversity. They want to avoid the isolation that occurs in so many other communities, where your daughter might be the only child in school wearing a hijab, or your son might be the only kid in his class with two mommies. Brighton is different, and we celebrate that difference. Our diverse population makes it important, vital, that we work together as a community to recognize and respect our differences without undermining what makes us strong and without unnecessarily putting people, particularly children, at risk. I want to echo the words of Brighton Central School District Superintendent, Dr. Kevin McGowan. Dr. McGowan couldn't be here tonight, but he wrote to families in Brighton this past weekend, "Kids have a lot on their plates. Please help." Dr. McGowan's words, and I hope my words tonight, seek to reinforce how important it is that we as a community can continue to engage with each other thoughtfully and peacefully, reflecting our diversity of thought, but just as importantly, our shared commitment to a safe and progressive community. In recent days, a number of community members have reached out to me about 3 demonstrations that were held about 2 weeks ago in the 12 Corners Park, 2 of which were held during school dismissal periods. We've all heard friends, neighbors speak of the difficult times we live in these days. Maybe we've even said it ourselves. We may have differences of opinion as to the cause of the challenges we face today, but I'm certain that we also can recognize that the stresses of daily life can particularly affect children. The Brighton Central School District has long collaborated with the town and with the Brighton Police Department to protect the safety of our entire community, but particularly our children. And we continue to do so every day, even as new concerns emerge. The Brighton Police Department was on scene in the 12 Corners Park when those demonstrations took place. And in my opinion, they handled a very difficult situation very effectively. Thank you to Chief Cathaldi and your officers, some of whom are here tonight. Unfortunately, on 2 occasions, people from outside the Brighton community chose to go beyond protected speech and engage in physical altercations. Those altercations were quickly controlled by the police and arrests were made because the police were already on scene. But these incidents serve as a reminder that physical acts of confrontation are never acceptable. At the same time as we ponder these events, we also ponder, we cherish our constitutional right of free speech, along with the other constitutional rights and freedoms we have as Americans. We cannot and we will not accept policies that will ban or unreasonably restrict free speech or gatherings from our public places, or seek to preemptively prosecute people based on perceived identity. We have the right to express ourselves, but as adults, we can and we should serve as role models for our children. And we should consider whether the times or venues we choose to express our free speech will put our children or our neighbors' children at risk or cause them needless discomfort. We must show our children by our own conduct that threats or actual physical violence are never acceptable, and that name-calling or bullying doesn't even belong on the playground, much less on the streets, in the parks, in the meeting rooms of the town of Brighton. I believe these goals of public safety and free speech are not mutually exclusive. Moving forward, I urge all members of our community to consider the impacts of our words and deeds, not just on our children, but truly on the entire diverse mosaic that we have built and that we celebrate here in Brighton. I think we sometimes forget what a unique community Brighton is and how that serves as a draw for people who are looking for a diverse community where education and sustainability are not just words, but they are our reality. They are our shared core values. But through it all, tonight, together, we can be proud to live in Brighton and proud of our many accomplishments during this past year. Tonight, I'm going to lay out some of those accomplishments and share my vision of Brighton's future, understanding that we will face challenges. Meeting those challenges will take hard work and collaboration at every level. I know we're up to the test, and that our shared commitment to Brighton as a diverse, welcoming, safe, inclusive, and sustainable community will serve us well, both on the good days and on the challenging ones. Looking back at 2023, perhaps the most notable accomplishment physically of the past year was the opening in November of the Brighton Winter Farmers Market on Westfall Road in Buckland Park. The project consisted of the renovation of an existing barn on the site and the construction of a new connected addition to that barn. The project would not have been possible without the financial support of New York State, and that support started with a grant from former Assembly Majority Leader, now member of Congress, Joe Morelli. Congressman Morelli could not be with us tonight. That grant was followed by additional grants from our current legislators, Senator Jeremy Cooney and Assembly Member Sarah Clark. Obviously, they are both in Albany. There's a lot going on in Albany right now, but Rose, thank you for being here on behalf of Senator Cooney. We've now moved the winter market from a tiny gymnasium at the former Brookside School to its new home in a highly visible location that has its own rich agricultural heritage. The Winter Farmers Market building was recognized with an award from the Genesee Valley branch of the American Public Works Association and nominated for statewide recognition by the APWA. Now, the market at that location is just a winter market. The summer market will return to Brighton High School, where so many of us spend the summer every Sunday morning there, starting on April 21st, and it will remain outdoors at Brighton High School in the parking lot until Thanksgiving. This will be our 17th market season, and all 17 years have been under the extraordinary leadership of market manager Sue Gardner-Smith. Another recently completed town building project was retrofitting our first net zero town public building, the Town Park Lodge in Town Park on Westfall Road. Net zero means that a facility has no carbon emissions. And by taking advantage of grant funding, we installed a new heat pump-based HVAC system in the lodge and added solar panels on the roof. We expect to make similar installations at other park facilities in the not-too-distant future, all with a goal of dramatically reducing carbon emissions, consistent with our Brighton Climate Action Plan and the New York State Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. We completed an update of the town's Climate Action Plan in 2023. That plan serves as a roadmap, like many of our planning documents do, but this one is a roadmap for future reductions in emissions, not just from town operations, but from the town as a whole. Completion of the plan itself also qualifies us for future sustainability grants. We've continued our purchases of electric and hybrid vehicles in 2023, and as the supply chain issues plaguing the auto industry begin to be alleviated, you're going to see more and more EVs here in our operations and more charging stations. Thanks again to a state grant. We just received word from the DEC that our grant was approved this week. These and many other actions demonstrate that Brighton is a statewide leader in sustainability, having been recognized as a bronze certified climate smart community and a clean energy community by NYSERDA. These programs recognize our accomplishment, and yes, they serve as vehicles for procuring additional grant funds to support new sustainability programs and projects here in Brighton. Thanks to our volunteer sustainability oversight committee, whose work has been extraordinary since before I became supervisor, and thanks to our planning staff, all of you have led the way to going green in Brighton. Now, of course, another project, the Whole Foods project, the Whole Foods Market and Whole Foods Plaza opened in 2023. After years of frivolous litigation that cost this community millions of dollars. Believe it or not, the same people that opposed Whole Foods are still trying to get the New York State Court of Appeals to hear their last appeal, long after the store has opened. Today, the Whole Foods Plaza is nearly fully leased, with Crumble's Cookie, yes, all you addicts out there, and the Good Feet store, about to join the many local and national tenants already in the plaza. It will be full. Across the street, Chipotle has recently moved from Pittsford to Brighton, again to be in proximity to the Whole Foods Plaza. As part of the Whole Foods Plaza project, the Auburn Trail was constructed by the developers of the plaza at no cost to taxpayers. That trail was also honored this year by the Community Design Center of Rochester at their luncheon. That was an incentive zoning project, and thanks to our use of incentive zoning and thoughtful, detailed land use review, the Whole Foods Plaza project has increased our tax base and provided additional community amenities like the trail with little or no unmitigated traffic or other impacts. Not only did Brighton residents get the award-winning Auburn Trail at no cost, but access management improvements have been built on the other side of Monroe Avenue, making it easier for people to get in and out of those stores at a signalized intersection. That's one of the reasons Chipotle chose to move down to Brighton. All of those improvements provide further catalyst to build our commercial tax base. Going forward, we remain committed to reviewing proposals to bring much needed affordable housing to Brighton. Of course, the town of Brighton doesn't develop affordable housing ourselves, but we've been working with developers as they put together possible proposals that would include affordable housing. And I certainly look forward to receiving firm proposals to build new affordable housing in Brighton. We need it. We can't have RG&E and other problems holding up much needed affordable housing here in Brighton. We also look to consider potential code amendments concerning mixed-use development opportunities along our major commercial corridors, like Monroe Avenue, which would add new market-rate residential units and commercial units, further energizing the business environment and increasing the number of convenient, walkable local businesses here in Brighton. In addition, I will be asking the town board and the town to take the necessary steps to qualify as a pro-housing community under Governor Hochul's housing framework and continue to work to make housing opportunities available for all here in Brighton. In doing so, I'm committed to protecting the look and feel of our existing neighborhoods because they've been a base for our community. And with sidewalks and attractive homes built closely together, they're already consistent with many of our goals of diversity and sustainability. Incentive zoning is also a way to help senior living communities expand in Brighton, providing, again, much sought after housing options for seniors, while also receiving community amenities. Jewish Senior Life, whose campus has evolved over the years, thanks in no small part to the collaborative use of incentive zoning, plans on constructing an additional residential building on the campus, along with some ancillary building starting later this year. Now, even though Jewish Senior Life is a tax-exempt organization, under the use of incentive zoning, Brighton residents will benefit from the amenity of new sidewalks that will be built along Winton Road from Westfall past the I-590 diverging Diamond interchange, again, at no cost to Brighton taxpayers. That's a recurring theme with incentive zoning, at no cost to Brighton taxpayers. Brighton continues to take the lead in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our IDEA board, IDEA stands for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advisory Board, meets regularly with our Chief Diversity Officer, Miriam Moore, who's with us this evening. Thank you, Miriam. The membership of the IDEA board reflects much of the broad diversity of Brighton, and we look to always make sure that that board is inclusive. But that way it can take the firsthand collective life experiences of our members in advising the town. Our Chief Diversity Officer, Miriam Moore, has led training sessions for town staff in a variety of formats, including a 28-day program this February. She's organized outreach events recognizing holidays like MLK Day, Pride, Black History Month, and others. We're the only local town to have ASL interpreters at all town board meetings and at many other community events sponsored by the town. Thank you again, Heather and Ally. At a time when I read about Wall Street firms cutting back on their DEI programs in response to perceived blowback, in Brighton, we know how important it is to include all members of our community, regardless of race, ethnic or religious backgrounds, gender identity, disability, and all the factors that make up who we are as individuals. We're the only town that marches in the Pride Parade. We have a regular DEI presence at the farmers market, and we will continue to make diversity, equity, and inclusion a core value in our policymaking and in our day-to-day operations. The safety of our community is also an essential function of local government. It is essential that the community is served by its first responders and law enforcement in a way in which every member of the community can feel confident. Brighton, of course, is served by the Brighton Police Department, the Brighton and Henrietta Fire Departments, and Brighton Volunteer Ambulance. Each of those agencies is highly trained and locally controlled. I'm grateful to the men and women of each organization for your selfless, dedicated, hard work for the community. Each of those agencies has engaged in training to help ensure that they're able to recognize and work with individuals who are facing mental health crises. Ironically, just as we did last year on the same night as the State of the Town address, on tonight's agenda, the town board will be receiving and filing a communication with identifying information removed from a Brighton resident and mental health professional, thanking the Brighton Police Department for the professional and sympathetic manner in which they recently handled a mental health issue in our community. So in addition to the chief, we have 3 officers here, and I am grateful to every man and woman in the Brighton Police Department for the work you do for this community. They are committed to community policing. This is just one example of how they do it. Looking forward to 2024 and development projects that are planned to start in 2024. Most important is right here, the room, the building you're sitting in. We are planning a major renovation of Town Hall. The core of Town Hall was dedicated in 1953. And remarkably enough, the HVAC system from that 1953 building is still in service, although at this point it's neither energy efficient nor terribly effective, especially in extreme weather. It is not ready for 73-degree February days, I can tell you that. We're currently working with INX Architects, a certified WBE architectural firm, to design the replacement of our HVAC system here in the core of Town Hall as part of the overall renovation of this building. Now, the project will only affect the core of Town Hall, not the library, not the police department, not the courts. But in keeping with our climate action plan and our commitment to sustainability, we are considering a geothermal system that will dramatically reduce carbon emissions from this building. 2 weeks ago, a test well was drilled on the Town Hall campus to determine the geothermal capacity of the ground under Town Hall. We're awaiting final test results. We're going to get them any day. But initial indications are encouraging. As part of that project, we will also install ramps to make the front entrance to Town Hall accessible to people with disabilities or mobility issues. Right now, the accessible entrance to Town Hall is in the back of the building. That smacks of back of the bus to me, it always has. We're going to change that. We will improve the technology in Town Hall, in this building, in this room rather, and throughout the building, while still retaining the classic exterior look of the building. We also plan to make drainage improvements to the campus and repave the parking lot. Anybody that's driven here over the years knows, and the two are connected. There are drainage issues here, and the parking lot needs a whole lot of work. But the big challenge of that project is the need to abate the asbestos that was used on construction projects back in the 50s. That asbestos abatement and the scope of this project will require that we temporarily leave this core portion of Town Hall, likely late in 2024 and likely for a year, if not longer. We're currently looking at alternative temporary locations, and we'll be planning all aspects of the project and the move during the remainder of 2024, because right now we hope that construction will begin before the end of 2024. Now, as I mentioned before, we'll also be pursuing additional smaller projects in park lodges and in other park buildings to upgrade systems and reduce energy consumption and carbon emissions. We're going to replace the playground at the town park. You may have already seen that it's been removed. We'll be putting in the new playground later this season. We're also planning on installing a new splash pad at Town Hall, replacing the existing pool, which is also nearing the end of its useful life, as are the mechanics that go with it. Our new splash pad will be installed either in late 2024 or in 2025. There are a number of other private development projects planned for Brighton. The most significant, the proposed Topgolf sports and entertainment facility planned behind the existing Costco store in Citygate. At this time, we're in the midst of environmental review of the proposal. You see it on the agenda tonight. We've had to hold our public hearing open because we continue to await material that the developer will be providing us from the New York State DEC. But that environmental review will continue once we get that information. The proposed project will be located on about 18 acres of land directly on the Brighton side of the city line behind that Costco store. The developer has made an application for incentive zoning approval, and again, we will consider significant amenities to the community as part of the review of the application, both financial, sidewalks, and other improvements. Now, currently, there's only one Topgolf in the state of New York. It's down on Long Island. The closest existing Topgolf locations are in Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So this project is going to draw from a significant geographic area. Topgolf appeals to golfers and non-golfers alike. I remember the first time I heard about Topgolf was from a friend of mine. She is definitely not a golfer, but she and her family were in Palm Springs, and the family had a blast at Topgolf. So once the environmental review has been completed, the town board will consider the project for approval. No decisions have been made yet, of course, and no decisions will be made without public hearings. Again, this is an incentive zoning project. Topgolf will pay full Brighton town property taxes under the terms of their incentive zoning proposal. And when the project, if it is approved, is completed, it will not only bring visitors to this community and the spin-off economic benefits of that on our restaurants, on our motels, and on other businesses, but it will add to our commercial tax base. And it will do all of this without significant traffic impacts. Access to the building will be from East Henrietta Road in the city of Rochester. Traffic coming from out of town will come up 390, largely, come up that little stretch of East Henrietta Road and go into Topgolf and really have very little impact on the rest of the town of Brighton. But that's obviously part of what we'll be reviewing, traffic studies, as part of our environmental review of the project. Also coming to Brighton in 2024 is a new Aldi's supermarket, which will anchor the plaza being built across the street from Tops Plaza on South Clinton Avenue. It's going to be about a 20,000 square foot supermarket store. Also coming to that plaza in 2024 will be Jersey Mike's and Starbucks. Quickly's is planning on opening 2 new locations in Brighton in 2024. One at the site of the existing mobile station in the 12 Corners, where they've agreed to a design that would put gas pumps at the rear of the project, blocked from view, back off the street, instead of that typical design you see where the pumps hit you in the eye when you see it. And that will also move retail activity closer to the street. Again, building the economic environment along one of, actually more than one of our important commercial corridors. The second Quickly's will be located on East Avenue, next to Brighton Fire Station number 1, in the long vacant gas station located at that spot. That Tudor-style gas station, which has been empty for years, is a designated Brighton historic landmark, and the developer will be preserving the look and the feel of that historic building. It will be approved by the Historic Preservation, it will be reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission as part of the review of the overall project, but they have committed to that design. They know how important that is to the community. Fairness and equity are important core values in our work. On the agenda tonight, the town board will be considering a proposal to conduct a townwide reassessment of properties to ensure that every property taxpayer in Brighton, residential or commercial, has a tax assessment that accurately reflects the fair market value of their property. We've heard a lot in the last couple of weeks about concerns with the reassessment process in the city. I'm committed, we're committed, that the process here is going to be an open, transparent process, starting with tonight's vote. We're voting on this, you know, in open session. The town board will be taking action. We're going to be making the decision to do that. The last town-wide reassessment in Brighton was held in 2018. We all know that real estate prices have skyrocketed since then, particularly in Brighton, where the 14618 zip code was recently recognized as the hottest zip code in America. Now, if that isn't worth a round of applause, I don't know what is. But it's important to update assessment valuations to ensure that no one is paying more than their fair share of property taxes. We're going to be engaged in an ongoing and thorough communication about the revaluation, assuming we vote to go forward tonight. Starting this spring, we'll be at the farmers market. We'll be holding meetings. Our East and West Brighton meetings will cover the revaluation project. We'll be at the farmers market, and we're going to keep doing that until the project is completed next year. Now, I know revaluation and tax assessments in general can be confusing, but I want to leave just one reminder, one message with you. And it's the reminder that although it is almost certain that the assessment of your home will increase, probably significantly over where it was in 2018, that does not mean your taxes are going to go up by the same percentage. Let me say that again, because I heard someone chuckle back there. The fact that your home will go up significantly in value does not mean that your tax, you know, let's just throw out a number, 50%. If your house goes up 50% in value, that does not mean your taxes will go up 50% in value, no matter what that alarm says. And the reason that's true is that tax assessments are not a measure of tax increases. They're a measure of tax fairness, a matter of fairly assessing the fair market value of your home or other property. As your assessment rises to reflect the true fair market value of your home, your town tax rate will very, very likely fall. And of course, when revaluation is completed, all property owners, as they do every year, all property owners will have the right to contest the valuation placed on their properties. Our town assessor, Pam Post, is working diligently to prepare for revaluation, as are the volunteer members of our Board of Assessment Review. This is something she will continue. Renee Morris, our assistant, will continue to work one-on-one with residents as we go through this process. So I encourage you, if you have questions, concerns, reach out to the assessor. She works with seniors in particular regularly as we deal with the property tax exemptions granted from the state. This is a significant effort, but it's an important effort to make sure that no one is paying more than their fair share of taxes. Brighton's fiscal condition has never been stronger. For the second year in a row, New York State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli awarded Brighton a perfect score for fiscal strength in his annual review of the fiscal stress levels faced by each municipality in the state. As we've discussed before, Moody's bond rating agency rates Brighton AA2, one of Moody's highest ratings. We continue to practice prudent fiscal management and budgeting, relying on long-term capital investment planning, conservative revenue estimates, and with particular adherence to state law and the Government Accounting Standards Board standards for government accounting. Our open and transparent budgeting process is second to none, and it shows. Tonight is not just a night to celebrate our successes. It's also a night to celebrate and acknowledge our Town of Brighton team, who work so hard for the people of Brighton every single day in so many ways. It's a night to celebrate our neighbors, the people who also serve our community so well, whether as first responders, as volunteers on community boards and organizations, as leaders in their church, synagogue, or mosque, as unsung heroes of every kind. Just yesterday, Councilmember Christine Corrado and I attended a Brighton Central School District school board meeting where two such unsung heroes were recognized as Brighton Believers by the Brighton Believes Council. First was school counselor Jenny Vigiani. She was nominated by one of her students for all that she has done to support students in the high school as they look to their options in the next stage of their lives. Second was Peggy Dempsey, known to all regulars on the Brickyard Trail as a person who loves and celebrates the natural environment in Brighton, particularly along the Brickyard Trail, and who shares her deep knowledge with fellow park lovers. Now, Peggy is known to me simply as one of my trail buddies, one of the people that makes my morning walks on the Brickyard Trail a little more enjoyable, a little more worthwhile, and I learned something when I talked to Peggy. Peggy's organizing the second annual Brickyard Trail Art Exhibition, starting a week from Saturday, March 9th, in the Buckland House on Westfall Road. If you went last year, you know what a great event it was. If you didn't, or if you did, don't miss it. The next 3 weekends, it's going to be out both Saturday and Sunday out at the Buckland House. Both of those Brighton Believers and so many others help make Brighton a place that people are proud to call home. It would take too long to acknowledge each of our town staff members individually and the contributions they each make in doing the work large and small every day for our residents. But suffice it to say, we're blessed to have such a diligent and capable team working for the town of Brighton and working for the people of Brighton in every department here throughout the town. I know I speak on behalf of all of my colleagues on the town board when I say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Congratulations are due to our two newest elected officials in Brighton. Judge Vic Vilku is our newest town justice. Succeeding Judge Karen Morris, who served Brighton for over 29 years. Judge Vilku is the first judge of Indian descent in upstate New York and the first Sikh trial judge in all of New York. Congratulations, Judge Vilku. We're fortunate to have you and Judge John Falk here with us tonight, but more importantly, serving on the bench here as Brighton Town Justices. Thank you both. Judge Karen Morris, again, thank you for your years of dedicated service. Anybody that ever appeared before Judge Morris knows that whatever reason brought them to Judge Morris's courtroom, Judge Morris gave them her undivided attention and her deep understanding of the many circumstances that can bring a person to court. We're lucky to have people like each of you as our judges, but Judge Morris, we're going to miss you deeply. Thank you. Congratulations also to our newest town board member, Nate Salzman, who was also elected this past November.
Thank you.
As a nearly lifelong resident of Brighton, a graduate of Brighton High School, you bring that local knowledge as well as the life experience of a new generation that is so important to our families in Brighton. Thank you also to Jason DePonzio, who couldn't be here tonight. But Jason served the town of Brighton for 12 years on the town board, and for a number of years before that on our zoning board of appeals. Jason served with quiet wisdom and attention, as well as a commitment to justice that showed particularly in his work to serve as counsel to the group that eliminated racist deeds restrictions in the Meadowbrook neighborhood where Jason lives. That was an extraordinary work, and Jason was at the forefront of doing that. Thank you, Jason DePonzio. It's a pleasure working with all of my colleagues in government at the federal, state, and local levels, particularly, of course, my town board colleagues up here, our staff, our town justices, and town clerk Dan Amon, who truly covers all the bases here in Town Hall and is a resource in so many ways for our residents and for all of us working here in the building. You know, if you don't know what the answer is, go to Dan. He probably does. Now, I know that some of you probably didn't come here tonight primarily to hear the State of the Town message, and that's okay. But I hope in these words tonight, in our accomplishments and in our vision for the future, you will know that Brighton is truly a place defined by its people. Tonight and every day, we can choose to be the people we aspire to be in this special town that we call home. And tonight, I'm asking everyone here, aspire higher. Remember what brought us here to Brighton and what keeps us here in Brighton. Tonight, we may face a complex and challenging time, but I believe that there is no place better prepared to deal with the challenges of a complex future than our hometown, the town of Brighton. It is a pleasure and an honor to serve you and this great community as your town supervisor. Thank you for taking the time to listen tonight. Okay, we are now going to begin the open forum portion of our meeting, which we hold at the beginning of every town board meeting. The open forum is an opportunity for members of the public to address the town board, concerning any matter relating to the town, whether or not it's an item on our agenda tonight. Now, because of the large crowd here tonight, I'd love to say we have this many people twice a month for our meetings, but we don't. But we do tonight. So when you entered the building, you had the opportunity to sign in and speak during the open forum. And I'm going to be calling on people to speak during the open forum in the order that you signed in to speak. What I'm going to do is call the first name to speak, and then I'll call the next name. You'll be on deck so you can get ready to speak next, particularly if you're downstairs. And of course, you know, we welcome the folks that are downstairs to speak tonight as well on the Zoom simulcast going on down there. Now, if you're here in person and you would still like to speak, go out to the desk in the front lobby and sign up in there. If you're participating tonight remotely and you would like to speak during the open forum, again, you're going to have to first sign up to our Zoom broadcast. As I mentioned, of course, I think we all know how to do that by now, but there are directions on the town's webpage. Once everybody that's signed up to speak before the meeting started, in other words, on these two sheets that I have, we will start taking people who would like to speak who are participating remotely on Zoom. I'll let you know, and at that point, you can advise the host that you would like to speak by using the Zoom raised hand function. Then, after any Zoom speakers speak, I will return to any people who have signed up while this meeting was going on, but that are here in person. We're going to give you all a chance to speak. But I do think it's important to make sure everybody understands our ground rules. I ask all speakers during the open forum, whether in person or remote, to please state your name and address. Whether you're here in person or participating on Zoom, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. I'll give you a 30-second warning before your time expires, but after you're told your 3 minutes have elapsed, you must complete your remarks. We may not be able to answer the questions you may ask tonight, particularly if your question or comment relates to a matter that's not on the agenda this evening. But our goal here tonight and during every town board meeting, where we give the public the opportunity to participate in the open forum, is for you to share your thoughts with the board and for us to be able to listen to your words. Now, speaking of the agenda, I think there may be some people that got the misapprehension that the town board has an action item on its agenda tonight relating to the recent demonstrations in town parks, specifically in the 12 Corners Park. Let me be clear, we do not have any agenda item relating to those demonstrations tonight. And again, the agendas are here in the room. Of course, you're welcome to speak, but if the reason you're here speaking is because you believe we're going to take some action on that particular matter tonight, we aren't. And of course, when you speak, we will listen carefully to your remarks, just as we have read carefully the many emails we've received in the last week or so. Again, the purpose of the open forum is to give members of the public the opportunity to speak directly to the board. So please direct your remarks to the town board and not to other speakers. Please refrain from personal attacks of any kind, name calling, and from applause or outbursts of any kind during the open forum, out of respect for the speakers and for the time of everybody that's here tonight. Persons who don't follow these rules for open forum, I'll give you a warning, but if you continue, you'll be directed to end your remarks. Failure to do so, or failure after being warned, to follow other directions from the chair may result in being directed to leave the meeting. So please follow these procedures that we follow every week at our town board meetings. Another reason tonight why it's so important is that our ASL interpreters have a hard stop at 9:30 this evening. So we want to make sure that, particularly if there are members of the deaf and hard of hearing community here, that they have the opportunity to use our deaf interpreter, our ASL interpreters, obviously as well on the Zoom broadcast. The ASL interpreters, if there is anybody here in the room, when the interpreters have to leave at 9:30 that needs interpreting, the closed caption is available downstairs in the simulcast that's being conducted in Judge Falk's courtroom downstairs. Okay. So we're going to start the open forum again. Please, 3 minutes. I know there's, people have legitimate concerns when we want to hear you, but we want to be able to hear everybody. So the first speaker is Nate Baldo. On deck will be Matthew Gould. Mr. Baldo, are you here?
Good evening. My name is Nate Baldo. I live in Rochester. I wanted to thank you all for your stance in support of free speech and freedom of assembly. I know what I'm about to speak about has been a very significant topic of discussion, so I thought I'd share my own thoughts and experiences. I've had the privilege of being in community for years now. As a Jewish person, I've had the privilege of being in community for years now with Palestinians, other Jews, and many others who are speaking out against occupation and for fundamental human rights. During my time in these circles, whether I'm wearing my kippah or taking part in prayers, I've been treated with nothing but respect and hospitality from people that I now consider family. I also feel that conflating Judaism and Zionism is incredibly dangerous for Palestinians and Jews alike. Israel's actions certainly do not align with my values as a Jew, and I know that I'm not alone in this conviction. I feel a dual responsibility as an American and as a member of the Jewish faith to speak out against what Israel is doing with massive U.S. military, economic, and diplomatic support to what Israel's been doing to the Palestinians since this is being done in my name and with my tax dollars. At the same time, I'm grateful for the growing movement calling for fundamental human rights so this nightmare of gruesome violence and oppression can finally come to an end. So I wanted to, again, thank each of you, and thank you to the board for your support of free speech and freedom of assembly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Baldo. Matthew Gould, and then Travis Kovitz is on deck.
Okay, my name is Matthew Gould. I live in Henrietta. And I want to say, first of all, thank you to the board for their support for free speech. When I read the proposal, I was deeply distressed by it because it represented a profound and, in my opinion, unconstitutional restriction on the right to assembly. It was very overbroad, and honestly, and it was clearly, transparently, a way to cracking down on, pro-Palestinian protests, despite its protestations in neutrality, given who had pushed it forward. And I think that's wrong. And as a Jew, I also second everything Nate has said. So thanks to the board again, and I'm done.
Thank you. I do want to just clarify, I'm not sure what proposal, because this town board does not have and is not at this time considering any proposal. Sure, come on back up. I'm asking you the question, so I just want to make sure
There was a proposal that has been sort of bouncing around that pushed forward, arguing for requiring a permit for all protests that occurred in Brighton. One, imposing a 500 to 1,000 feet restriction on protests within the space of school and other things. And I was referring to that as a proposal, not necessarily as a proposal that's in front of you, but as a proposal put forth by members of the community.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Excuse me, just a moment. Our next speaker is Travis Kovitz, and Roberta Schwartz is on deck. And yes, sir. Can you come to the, I can't, the audience, sir, the audience won't be able to hear you unless you come to the microphone.
A simple question. Is the open forum for Brighton residents or any resident in the city of Rochester, New York State, or the United States of America?
The open forum is an opportunity for anyone to come in and speak to the town board. We've been
Regardless
asked-
of
please,
regardless
sir,
if they live.
Please, sir, let me answer your question. That has always been our policy, and let me tell you why. I talked about stakeholders earlier. People are stakeholders in a community like Brighton for many reasons. Some of you live here. Some of you may worship here. Some of you may teach here. Some of you may be ticked off because you hit a pothole on a town street and you want to tell me about it. So there's all sorts of reasons that people may want to come in to speak to the town board. So our presumption is that if someone wants to take time out of their schedule to come in to speak, yes, we welcome their words.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Sure. And Mr. Kovitz?
Thank
Travis
you.
Kovitz, yes.
Yes, Travis Kovitz of Webster, New York. I am here to represent Jewish Voice for Peace Rochester, as well as the Democratic Socialists of America Rochester, both of which are groups that cover the greater Rochester area and therefore include members who live in Brighton. I also personally spend time in Brighton and have spent time at 12 Corners Parks. These organizations would like to thank the board for their principled stance in support of free speech and the right to assembly. We would also like to encourage investigations into whether the violent incidents that occur at 12 Corners Parks were a hate crime. Considering the video of the event that has been provided to the public makes us think that there's a valid case for a hate crime charge in this case. Thank you.
Roberta Schwartz is our next speaker, followed by Talia Delphi. I hope I'm pronouncing these names right. My apologies if I don't.
Hello, my name is Roberta Schwartz, and I am a resident of Brighton, and have been so for over 30 years. I'm also Jewish, and I'm also very, very concerned and supportive of a permanent ceasefire, concerned about the 30,000 Palestinians who have been slaughtered, and concerned about the tax dollars and the military support that has been.
Point of order. Does this town have anything to do with international foreign policy?
Sir, please let Ms. Schwartz continue to speak. Thank you.
And the military support that's been directed to Israel. I thank the board for its support of free speech and also of support of peaceful protests that have taken place in Brighton. I was very, very concerned about what happened a couple of weeks ago during the protest that I attended. In particular, the violence that occurred and the hate crime that I saw being directed to a Palestinian, and I would like that to see that investigated. Again, thank you for listening to me, and let's all hope for peace.
I will remind you, please, I know you may feel strongly about what one person or another says, but I would ask that there not applaud or other outbursts. Thank you. Dahlia Delphi?
Yeah, Talia Delphi,
Dahlia.
perfect, thanks.
And Rachel Rosner is on deck. Go ahead.
I also truly appreciate your stance on protecting First Amendment rights. I would like to read my statement that I made because I think it's worth saying, if that's okay, and I would appreciate silence. I find it incredibly ironic to complain about community protests as dangerous and frightening to our children in a country where our children are now forced to regularly practice active shooter drills in their classrooms. The main complaint addressed here is that these protests are dangerous, offensive, and aggressive. I agree that protesters and citizens should be protected from all harm and aggression, though I do not believe these restrictions would in any way mitigate the potential for violence that has become a part of most Americans' everyday fears, as the rate of mass shootings and gun-related deaths in our nation break world records, and firearms rise to the leading cause of death in children in the United States. If we cannot curtail the Second Amendment for our children's protection, I submit that we certainly shouldn't consider curtailing the First. Protesters must assemble during busy hours and in areas of commerce in order to gain as much visibility as possible in our efforts to raise awareness of human rights violations and obvious war crimes being facilitated by our government. As a member of a group that organizes protests and actions, I can assure you that intimidation, especially of children, is in no way our goal. We organize specifically to preserve future generations and set them up for more success than our generations have had access to. Our mission is to model what active participation in government and conscious participatory awareness of the world around us looks like, and to offer an opportunity for individuals to express valid concerns for policies we otherwise have very little control over. Exercising our freedom of speech and right to assembly, as the Constitution guarantees, are two of the most powerful methods any citizen can employ to influence governmental policies. In my opinion, it's crucial for our children to see that there is power in their presence, in their voices, and in their opinions. There is absolutely nothing on our signs that our children are not seeing on their cell phones and television screens every day. My best advice for those who don't wish for their children to see images of mutilated body parts or children's murdered bodies is to join us in protesting against the government's commitment to these acts of violence. We are not the ones creating these images. We are haunted, as the community is, by the presence of this evil in the world, by these horrifying and unshakable images and realities perpetuated by our leaders and facilitated by our silence. It is a slippery slope to begin curtailing constitutionally protected freedoms for the comfort of a few. The restrictions proposed would have severely limited the ability of activists to organize in an impactful way and are, in the most basic terms, preposterously unconstitutional. Thank you.
Please, again, I've got to ask you, we're gonna proceed letting everybody speak respectfully, but please don't applaud or make other outbursts so we can continue and listen thoughtfully to the words, whether we agree with them or not. I want to be able to continue the open forum, but if that continues, we're just going to, so I'm going to ask you, please do not, thank you, go ahead. Rachel Rosner and Robert McFarlane is on deck.
Good evening, members of the town board. I felt I needed to be here tonight to say thank you. In the months since October 7th, the world has stood still in so many ways. My Israeli family and friends have been traumatized. And Israel's response to Hamas's attack corresponds directly to a monumental uptick in anti-Semitism across the world. What is going on there has had a direct impact on people living right here in Brighton. So many of us are worried for the safety of our friends and family. And I'm not just talking about Israelis. I'm talking about my local friends who can't stay in regular touch with their families in Palestine, whose families cannot get medicine or food or menstrual products in Palestine, and whose families cannot safely leave their homes in the West Bank, all in the name of Jewish safety. Here in Brighton, we've been subjected to escalating propaganda and outright lies about Palestine for years. Hateful rhetoric doesn't make people feel unsafe. It leads directly to danger. Just as we saw on February 16th, when a Palestinian man was attacked by a man spewing obscenities and promising more violence and death. What might have led an Israeli man who lives in Shortsville, New York, to drive all the way to Brighton in the middle of the day to throw eggs at anti-war protesters and to physically assault a Palestinian man? Propaganda. Spreading lies and falsehoods about the 6 or so senior citizen protesters holding flags in 12 corners on February 13th, leading parents to believe that their teenagers were in danger from a large violent mob while walking home from school that day. That is what is dangerous. Sending out community-wide safety alerts after a handful of seniors stood on the corner to ask for a stop to mass murder is what is dangerous. That is why a Jewish man attacked a Palestinian man right here in Brighton. Teaching our children to fear people with different opinions is what is dangerous. Teaching our children to fear Palestinians, xenophobia and Islamophobia is what is dangerous. Asking our police department to actively identify individuals of concern who may pose a risk to the safety of our community is what is dangerous.
30 seconds.
It's McCarthyism. It's fascism. Thank you for holding fast and firm to Brighton's values as the people elected you to do. No changes to the town's ordinances, codes, or police general orders would have stopped what happened last week. We will not allow fear and hatred to declare victory in our town. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Robert McFarlane. Kim Nelson will be on deck.
Hello, my name is Robert McFarlane. I live in Rochester, New York. I used to live right here in Brighton, New York. A dear friend took me in when I needed a place to stay. I lived there for 4 years. And during that time, I had the pleasure to meet the supervisor and to work with Robin Wilt. And one of the campaigns that I worked, or the campaign I helped out with, was getting the Haudenosaunee land recognition statement. And I'm not trying to butter you up. It's one of the strongest and most powerful and eloquent statements of any public land recognition that I've heard or read. So I want to thank you and commend you for that. At least I know that some of my efforts while I lived here in Brighton bore fruit, really wonderful fruit. I also want to thank Chief of Police David Cataldi and the police department, the Brighton Police Department, for protecting all people that were present. And I have nothing but commendation and thanks for the superior and timely and wonderful work that the police department did on the 3 days that they were in attendance. So thank you for that. It's pretty obvious where I stand, and I'm not here to make a speech about what's going on in Gaza. What I will say is that the first day that I was in attendance as a protester, one of the security officers from the schools, how much time do I have?
3 minutes. Another minute and a half.
A minute. A security officer, and I wish I had her name, stood next to me, and at one point, 4 youths approached. They were, I'll say they were male, because they were, and they wanted to engage. They were polite, and the security officer shooed them away and said, I know this one, the spokesperson, if you will, he looked about the age of 14 or 15. She shooed him away and said, he was setting you up, he's a troublemaker, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, he seemed fine to me. The kids went away. They came back about a half an hour later, and the oldest, or the most articulate, addressed a question to me, and we had this wonderful exchange. I used to teach high school in the Bronx for 10 years. I know, and I raised 2 daughters. I coached their sports teams. I know youth. I know teens.
30 seconds.
And what she said, what those boys engaged in a conversation about, was highly intelligent, respectful. The young man who was the spokesperson, the boy who was the spokesperson, kept saying, sir, and well, how would you accomplish that? There was nothing disrespectful, and I made a point to say to that security officer, please tell that child's counselors, students, most of all the parents, that he's a fine example of a Brighton high school student. Thank you.
Time. Thank you. Kim Nelson, followed by, I think this says Charles Wagner.
Hello, I'd like to introduce myself, and I appreciate this opportunity to introduce myself to you. Over the course of the last 5 months, I have protested in front of Chuck Schumer's office at the Federal Building, in front of Joe Morelli's office downtown. I have joined the people who protest war and have been standing on the corner of Goodman and East Avenue for 40 years, every Sunday from 12 to 1. Just this morning, I was on the corner of Elmwood and South Clinton, protesting with signs because I'm extremely concerned about the forced starvation that is occurring now. I do feel great concern, and my cause that pushes me to go onto the street to protest is that I think the polling says that 70% of Americans would like a ceasefire, and yet less than 15% of our Congress is calling for one. And I think there's a huge disconnect there, and I question what that is due to. And I want to publicly challenge the people I live in community with, what is happening here, and how do you feel about it? And I don't think silence is an appropriate response to the genocide. And that's not my word. That is the word of the International Court of Justice that is happening now.
Please, please.
It is true. The International Court of Justice has said that there is a very credible genocide happening now. It is true. The International Court of Justice has said that there is a very credible genocide happening now.
Can you move on, please?
I can. So I also taught school for 30 years. My expertise was in teaching children who had experienced great trauma. I taught English and creative writing, and I'm happy to say I helped many students with their trauma through those means. I'd like to say that we did not engage with students. We held our signs, and we also were surrounded by police and school security. No one was at risk except for us. When people gave the middle finger and yelled obscenities, they were doing that toward us, toward the protesters, people in cars. People's children were horrified by the way that their parents were behaving, frankly. There was a death threat toward us issued. So that's where the danger came from. And I wanted to come here, and I appreciate you allowing me to introduce myself so that you know a little bit about who was standing there and that I did not pose any threat to the children there.
Time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charles Wagner, and then David Sperber on deck.
Good evening.
Oh, okay, thank you. Then Odell Spindle will be next.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Wagner. I'm a resident of Brighton for 24 years. I raised 2 daughters here, went through our Brighton schools. We moved here from San Diego. We selected Brighton for 3 reasons: the quality of education, the diversity of our community, and it was a safe, wonderful place. And it needs to remain that. What's been going on at 12 Corners, I've had a perspective of many years walking through 12 Corners. In fact, I ran into you on Sunday on the Brickyard Trail. That was me and my older daughter having a bagel with my new grandson. You were a little cold. I was happy to see you. I've been happy to see you for 13 years. And you know, I think we're all a little bit afraid to see what has really happened. So 12 Corners has gotten progressively more dangerous to cross the street. Every Sunday when I go to the farmer's market, somebody's running a red light. The crosswalk was broken for 6-8 months. You didn't get a walk signal on Elmwood. You know, and now we have, in violation of Title IX, our school students being harassed. And if we want to know why that's happening, it's because we're Jewish in Brighton. There's no other reason that people are coming here to terrorize our children. And now we've got Middle East in the middle of Winton Road. The town of Brighton supervisor, our police have the tools at their disposal to prevent this. There is no, you can't, free speech. I mean, we got Claudine Gay here now, free speech. We have a tiny little park in the middle of 3 streets. There is no reason we need to have public debate, demonstration, and terrorizing our children there. We can have free speech someplace that's not dangerous and enhancing the danger to our children that already exists. We have crossing guards that are, God bless them, they've been there forever and they're ready to quit. You know, our police can't patrol the streets. We can have a permitting process. We don't need to have this here in our community. And we can recognize it for what it is. The reason this is happening here is because we have a large Jewish population and it's an easy target. And I think our leadership needs to stand up with some moral clarity and say, not here. We don't want hate here. These are our children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Spindle and,
Thank you for
and Ari Shochat is next.
I will ask that this will be entered to the minutes. There is
Absolutely.
duplicates, and I will hand
Give
it
that to the clerk when you're
each one
finished.
of you. One of the only Brighton tenants to talk tonight. Good evening, town supervisor, council member, police captain, and town staff. Thank you for the time this evening. I'm standing here in front of you with many other residents of Brighton to share again our concerns. This situation, unfortunately, is not about freedom of speech or the US Constitution. I'm standing here in front of you with many other, this situation is about targeting by non-Brighton residents that are coming here with because of the highest population of Jewish people, Jewish kids, during and around school operating hours, with display of highly visual objects, signs, and aggressive behavior. This is nothing short of attempt to terrorize our community, and in particular, our kids. These recent events are anti-Semitic in nature, racist, and have no place in this town or anywhere else. I'm also standing here talking to you today as a proud Jew who lives in this town of Brighton. Again, the town that has the highest Jewish population concentration in the region. I am a son of survivors of the Holocaust. I've learned and experienced what true, pure Jew targeting, anti-Semitism, and hate look like. Lastly, I am standing here as a dual citizen, American and Israeli. I was born and raised in Haifa, Israel, in a mixed neighborhood, Jews and Muslims. I saw and lived through so many past and current periods of this conflict. None of you can say that. And I personally had the unfortunate share of tragic loss, scare and pain. Together with that, I can share with you that some of my childhood best memories were together with my Muslim brothers. We always were able to live as a community, despite our differences. This was
I'm going to ask the people in the back to please be quiet.
I will ask to add time.
I'm sorry, sir.
Thank you. This was because we respected each other and had empathy to each other. Let me repeat this. We were always able to live in a respectful way because we respected each other and had empathy to each other. I completely believe that one should be able to voice his, her, their opinions. And we're not here calling to prevent this right from or any group or individual. It is their right. However, yes, we are here to say that the recent demonstration by individuals who are, again, non-Brighton residents. And
30 seconds.
Okay. And from our out-of-town, painlessly simple, targeting Jewish members of our quiet, peaceful, and beloved community. Targeting, which is practice of anti-Semitism here in Brighton. When this group of non-Brighton residents demonstrated at MLK Park, we did nothing. When they're demonstrating in front of the Federation Building, we did nothing. But now, when this demonstration become graphic and violent displays, arrest and injure Jews with broken skull or else, we are concerned. This situation is escalating and rapidly. And one can imagine where we might be headed. Very concerning.
Time. And you're welcome to submit the rest of your statement.
Yeah, I will.
To your entire.
I can tell you the most honest and blunt way, we will not solve any.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Let me just, I'm trying to keep time here. You are Ari Shokat?
Correct.
Edie Krieger is on deck. Go ahead, Mr. Shokat.
I can tell you that in the most honest and blunt way, we will not solve any Mideast conflict from the 12 corners, and the people who are demonstrating know this as well very clearly. Again, the recent demonstrations are aiming to accomplish one and one thing only, terrorizing our community, and in its current location, even worse, terrorizing our kids. And by kids, I mean all the kids, Jewish and non-Jews. Seeing body parts with blood, covered babies with other aggressive and violent behaviors, what's the benefit of that? There is none. Oded attended personally the most recent demonstration that took place on Sunday 10 days ago. He had the opportunity to connect with the leaders of the group, a Palestinian gentleman who's the patriarch of the Jabber family. Oded approached him and discussed and essentially handed him an olive branch. During the discussion, he was able to hug him, physically hugged him, and offered to have a discussion and tried to bridge the gap instead of having them terrorize our kids. The police captain can confirm that it was him that he saw with his own eyes. Oded unfortunately assigned low probability of success of his ongoing attempt with him, but remained optimistic. I do not know if these demonstrations are being funded by a third party or purely anti-Semitic or purely a combination of both, but regardless, we ask the town's board to take the following actions, even if on a temporary basis. 1, require permits for demonstration. 2, require gatherings of 5 or more people to be approved by and authorized with designated individuals as a contact point. 3, protesting can't be allowed with a set distance of educational institutions. 4, protesting can be held during operations of educational institutions, including student dismissal and drop-off. It also provides a risk to parents dropping kids off and picking kids up as many kids bike and walk to school. The town should work with law enforcement authorities to identify bad actors who are violent and who have deployed oppressive tactics in the past. The first was, we shall show our children threats of actual physical violence were never acceptable. You are absolutely correct. The problem is that we are unfortunately already beyond the point, Supervisor, based on recent events, and the town must act with immediate corrective measures. The 5 points mentioned above are just now reasonable actions which were taken by neighbors of neighboring municipalities. We don't want any more injuries, arrests, or stressed kids on either side, and confident that you can join us with this hope. No more injuries, arrests, or stressed kids. The second point was anti-Semitism and Islamophobia have no place in Brighton, and I agree 100% with this. I'm here on record saying clearly, I condemn any anti-Semitic or Islamophobic behavior. I welcome our friends from non-Jewish families here tonight, beyond including Muslims, to condemn these, as well together with condemning these protests. We are happy to be a part of discussions as a broader solution, just leave our kids out of it.
30 seconds, please.
30 seconds, I'm gonna have my own words. There's many restrictions in this town. There's many restrictions in general. You're not allowed to campaign within a certain distance of polling places. You're not allowed to wear specific emblems or specific sportswear to school. There are restrictions to First Amendment rights. You're not allowed to bring firearms into this building. There's restrictions on my Second Amendment rights. There's no reason to not have restrictions on time and places of protests. Thank you guys very much. Police, thank you very much for your support in the community.
Thank you. Edie Krieger, followed by Sue Criminale. Sorry if I'm struggling to read that.
Hello, my name is Edie Krieger. I'm a senior at Brighton High School, so I am a student at Brighton High School. and I am Jewish, but I do feel strongly on the matter that happened. I know you guys said that you're not going to be discussing that here today, but I do hope that what I say you'll take into consideration and just think about. I don't believe that a person should be charged or be in trouble for protesting what they believe in. I understand that there was aggression, but I also understand that in response to an attack, that isn't a valid reason to be charged. Not only was a protester attacked, the attacker also stopped traffic and was driving recklessly and illegally. And both parties are being charged the same, I believe, and I feel this is outrageous and unfair. I think that it is unfair that the punishment does show a bit of a bias, in my opinion, against Free Palestine movement because of the high Israeli population and following here in Brighton. And I do feel that these charges should be reassessed. So I do want to thank you for listening to that. Also, what other people are saying about not having protests be allowed in 12 Corners or by the school, that would also limit student protesting. So if students wanted to protest something, we wouldn't be able to do that. Also, a couple weeks ago, prior to this protest, there was another protest held by people who are protesting pro-Israel, and there was no concerns raised about when that happened. So I would just like to say that. As a student at Brighton High School, I do not feel threatened by protests that happened. I do feel more, if anything, even in school, I get a lot of anti-Semitic comments, but none from people in support of Palestine. So I don't feel posed a threat as a student. I don't know anyone else who I go to school with who feels threatened by these protests, and I think they should continue to be allowed. If one party is, allowed to share their rights, the opposing party should as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. Please. Please, hold on just a second. You are Sue?
I am Susan Kuminelli.
Okay, please.
This is my neighbor who also signed up, came in after me. We are neighbors at Eastbrook Condominiums.
If you don't mind just waiting for a second. If you're going to engage, you need to leave. Simple as that.
They're engaging. These are children, these are adults, they're engaging with the
And you are engaging right now, too. Okay. Go ahead. Thank you.
I have nothing to say about the issues that have been previously expressed by everyone. This is a completely different issue that affects the Eastbrook condominium community. I've waited a long time. This is a neighbor of mine. Like I said, he also signed up. I used to be on the board over at Eastbrook. And so many of my neighbors have come to me with this issue. The issue is we have brand new tower lights that flash strobe 24 hours a day. During the day, they strobe like a strobe light. And I happen to face the plot of land of which the XXI towers stand. There are 4 of them. Only 2 are lit. They're white strobes on 2 during the day. At night, 4 are red and strobe all night long. It's like a circus around there. I have lived in this community, Eastbrook, for 22 years. I know it's winter, but in the summertime, I have a balcony, and I love to go out on that balcony and enjoy looking at the deer and the rabbit, etc. We also sit outside and have an occasional glass of wine and enjoy the nice weather. My neighbors have gone crazy. I have spoken to Jason Hermes, I think I'm pronouncing that correct, and also Eric Castle. I have heard everything from it's WXXI. We gave them the permit, meaning Brighton Town gave them the permit. We had old towers. The old towers came down approximately 2.5 years ago, Bob? Little less than that, maybe. And it was months before the new towers went up, one by one. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we got strobes. My neighbors are saying, I close my drapes and it's strobing in on my floor and I get headaches. One said her dog had a seizure as a result of the strobing. So I don't know about that, but all I'm saying is something needs to be done. I've heard several different scenarios as to what the problem is. The next problem, because it wasn't WXXI, I was told, that it was the FAA. They're there, that's the WXXI towers. But it was the FAA, and that was the new, but it wasn't there 3 years ago. So did the FAA, I just want to come down to the bottom of the problem. I want the strobing to stop. We had 2 single lights that didn't flash for 20 years, and now we have 6 of them flashing all day. Please help. And this is Bob, he's a neighbor, he lives 1 street over. We have had several complaints from people even on French Road. I call it the circle around the property.
Bob, would you like to speak as
Yeah,
well?
yeah,
sure. With everybody's discretion, they've waited very patiently. So Bob, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just be brief. I'll just confirm everything that Sue had said, of course, and you can see it not just from the homes that are right across from the lights, but throughout much of the community itself. And just to reiterate a point, when my wife had moved in there just about 2 years ago, and the old towers were still up, they were there, but okay, there's some lights out there. But these new towers are just completely different than the old. They're brighter, they flash. I think they move them closer. They've gone from, we have some lights in the background in the woods area to something that's just front and center. People worry about property values, they worry about health, they worry about a lot. And the only thing that I was gonna bring up in addition was it would be great, and I don't know if it's appropriate in this form or not, or maybe in a follow-up, if we could have a point person, either someone on the council or someone just saying, here's what you should do. So we have some clarity and direction. Somebody that could say, I can help you, or I maybe not be help you, but go to this person. This is who would be the right person to go to, because we just want some clarity. And then we can take it up a lot on our own or with your help, but we need a little more clarity on what to do. And that's about it.
I'm going to interject just one thing. I've spoken to Jason, and he came to my home at Eastbrook.
Okay.
And our president of our board was also there. So he saw it firsthand. He even came up to my bedroom, the living room, my guest room, and saw the flashing coming in. So he knows it firsthand. So we need answers.
That's helpful, thank you. Our Commissioner of Public Works, Jim Sprague, couldn't be here tonight.
Well, I also
Jason works under him, and I will reach out to Jim and to Jason, and your concern about having a point person is a good one. That can be a helpful way to resolve things. We'll try to get some answers. It may well be. We are in the flight path of the airport, and I know there
always have been.
Yep. But sometimes those regulations do change over time. So, but we'll try to get you some answers.
Thank you.
What was that person's name again?
Jason Haremza. Oh, and Jim Sprague is the Commissioner of Public Works. But
Okay,
he's
Jim
not,
Sprague, thank you.
couldn't be here.
And folks, if I could just add one thing, sorry, Supervisor. I think one of your neighbors came up here to speak. He asked me where a meeting was about XXI and the town with towers, and not knowing anything about it. I looked around, tried to find anything, but nobody knew anything about it, because obviously you're just coming to open forum.
There was several other people with me tonight.
Yeah, but there was a gentleman who left before 7 who was here. So if you hear from, just with my apologies back to him, because obviously I didn't know you would be speaking tonight.
Okay.
Thank you both, and thank you for that, Dan.
Good night. God bless everybody. Work it out.
Next is Alexei Tetanov, Seth Weinstein to follow.
Supervisor, I want to first say I'm impressed by your handling of the crowd tonight, as opposed to in the past. You have been far heavier-handed, and I appreciate you being more willing to take a conciliatory tone and a more dignified tone tonight in dealing with speech that you don't approve of. I believe that name-calling is protected speech, and I don't appreciate you deciding that for this town, name-calling is not protected speech. I believe the Supreme Court has defined anything but threats of violence protected speech. So I would encourage you to reconsider. I also wanted to point out that every meeting, twice a month, you guys really are waging war on the rights and the privileges that Americans enjoy. Every meeting, twice a month, you somehow find a way to spend more and more money, like it's going out of style. The budget has never decreased in the 15 years that I've lived here. It seems like you need to somehow outpace inflation when so many people here in our town are hurting more and more due to inflation. So yet you say, oh, we're hurting, the town employees are hurting too, so we need to increase the benefits for our town employees to the detriment of the taxpayers here, and I don't think that's right. So I encourage you to stop waging war against the town people, the members of our town. I wanted to bring up the First Amendment was ratified in 1793 in the Bill of Rights. You guys haven't had a chance to learn it, read it, understand the case law around it. Name calling is protected speech. And the one thing that I would warn all the members here, when the town, and for some reason you seem to be the chief executive here and the chief legislator, and I thought there was supposed to be a separation of powers, but I guess I haven't looked into the town charter to understand why there's such a dual role that you seem to occupy.
30 seconds, Mr. Tatanoff.
I also wanted to disagree with the reassessment. Reassessing people is really turning up the heat against seniors. When you reassess everybody, the tax burden shifts slowly from the people that have overpaid for their house, that wanted to get into Brighton, and shifting more and more of that burden on senior citizens that have invested in this community for decades, and now you're shifting more of that burden on them. And I wanted to...
Time, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Seth Weinstein, followed by Nicholas Wilt.
Hello, my name is Seth Weinstein. I own a home on Westland Avenue in Brighton. I have 3 children that attend Brighton schools. I'm also the principal drafter of the templates that so many people here use to write letters to you all to try to enact and support the enactment of reasonable common sense restrictions on public gatherings. Many people have tried to manipulate these requests that because of one side of a political hotbed issue or the other. And I can tell you that that is not the case whatsoever, that all the requests are designed for public safety concerns only. It doesn't matter who's holding protests in 12 Corners Park. As Dr. McGowan said, creating more people in 12 Corners Park makes it inherently unsafe, regardless of any political issue that the protesters may support. For people who try to manipulate these requests as being one side or the other, it's shameful. Whether you are supporting Israel, supporting Palestine, it really doesn't matter when it's the safety of my kids at stake and all of your kids at stake. You'll note that the requests do not take one side or the other. It would require all groups to obtain a permit, to notify the town, and to keep their protests away from the schools and outside of school hours. There's these restrictions should be enacted without regard to one's race, creed, color, ethnicity, sex, gender, or political affiliation. Another point that has been voiced, which is untrue, is that the town cannot enact this reasonable legislation, these reasonable limitations. The U.S. Supreme Court, in the case of Cox versus New Hampshire, unanimously decided that municipalities have a right to enact reasonable limitations on public gatherings without violating First Amendment rights. The First Amendment has its limitations. People here cannot yell fire and in a crowded room. It's unacceptable. And this is why I support these restrictions. They're reasonable. They make sense. They keep the public safe. They keep kids the ability to walk freely through sidewalks after school, before school. They allow traffic to continue at all times. The government has a legitimate interest in keeping order, and this is what the request is designed to accomplish. Anything less will be a failure of this governing body. You have been elected by the people of Brighton to keep our town safe. Regardless of any political issue, there should be reasonable, common sense restrictions on gatherings in public parks, away from schools, outside of school hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicholas Wilt, followed by Lauren Flom on deck.
Protests at the 12 Corners. It's a long-standing tradition in Brighton. Just in the last few years, there have been 2 huge Black Lives Matter protests. One of them convened at the 12 Corners. Another convened at the corner of Highland and Monroe, and the Brighton Police Department was kind enough to shut Monroe Avenue down and facilitate a safe march in peaceful support of Black lives to the 12 Corners, where speakers were heard. You, Supervisor Maley, were present at one of those protests. There was also a Blue Lives Matter protest at the 12 Corners. I'm not sure why, but someone saw fit to bring an Israeli flag to that protest. There were no calls for changes to town policy after those protests. And my favorite, politicians on Election Day morning, a Tuesday morning in early November, school is always pretty much in session. Politicians convene all around the periphery of the 12 Corners to belatedly make the case for their political candidates. Maybe we should stop that too. I think in context, the discussion we're having tonight is more about either what is being said or who is saying it, because gatherings at the 12 Corners with 5 or more people has been happening without any harm to the town, I think net positive to the town. Now, a longtime peace activist friend of mine sent a detailed letter to Mr. Werner in his capacity as the chair of the Public Safety Committee, with a detailed firsthand account that included details supporting the rationale for differently charging the participants in the altercation that happened at a protest. And she also she posted a video of one of the people who participated in that altercation while he was in police custody. I don't know if he'd been Mirandized, but
30 seconds.
Anything he could say could and should be used against him in court.
Right now, we have 1 to 20. We took 40,000 of you motherfuckers. We are going to take 500,000 each. What is the guy who hit me with the stick?
Time.
We killed 40,000 of you motherfuckers, he said.
Time. Thank you, Mr.
Who's
Will.
being violent here?
Hello, my name is Lauren Flaum. I'm a longtime Brighton resident. Basically lived in Brighton most of my life. My family moved back to Rochester about 10 years ago, and the reason why we came back to Brighton is for all the reasons why we're here today. Diversity, the wonderful place to live, close to the city, all the things that you would want a family to have. So first and foremost, thank you all for doing your public service. Thank you to the Brighton Police. The reason why I'm here is that I'm a strong supporter of freedom and the Constitution and everything that it gives us and why we live in the greatest country in the world. However, I urge you to consider protecting our children. I have a 12-year-old, sixth grader in middle school. I had to pick him up early from school the other day because he was scared. He was scared of the protests that were happening. And I'm not alone in that. There's multiple kids that feared for themselves, feared just for the fact of them being Jewish in Brighton, in 12 Corners, in the town that we know and love. And that should never be the case in a place like Brighton that has such diversity and such wonderful, wonderful place that we all love and care so much about. Nowhere should a 12-year-old kid feel scared to go to school and have to leave school because of protests in front of 100 feet from their building. So I think that there should be some very reasonable guardrails around when and how students should be protesting, or people should be protesting. It's a very reasonable request. I totally agree with Mr. Weinstein and Mr. Spindle's 5-step plan. They're very reasonable and protect our kids. And that's really why I'm here and really why most of us are here tonight. We don't want to see our children be terrorized. And I think that our children having to live in having to deal with anti-Semitism, which is completely on the rise, and as a grandchild of Holocaust survivors, I would never, ever want my children to have to deal with what my grandparents had to deal with, and not especially at a place like Brighton that we love and have lived in, that I've lived in for a majority of my life. So just in sum, I'm in full support of having guardrails around the ability to protest. I don't think that limits our freedom of speech. I think it creates reasonable order and law and order within our community, and I think it will have more people respect the rule of law and have more order within our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I have Ari Shokat's name again, but I believe you've already spoken.
I have.
So
Or if you'd like.
I'm going to skip to Kelly Guilfoyle, who is the next speaker listed. After that, I have a Y. Gold.
Hello, my name is Kelly Guilfoyle. I reside in Brighton. My daughter is a senior in Brighton High. Came here tonight to support these 3 students from Brighton High. They wanted to stand up for the protests. There's so much to learn with diversity, with unity, and I think us as adults are responsible for the fear that these kids have. Talking to them about the differences and why they're standing there and not making it of diverse reasons of hate and ugliness that's going on. We are the only ones that can help those kids not feel fearful. I'm sorry, I'm a little
It's okay.
I'm a little upset because I do sit in the back now, and this girl, student at Brighton High, had the courage to come up here and speak, use her voice. That's not easy. It's not easy for an adult to do this, and it's certainly not easy for a kid. And I sit in the back, And I hear an adult turn to this child after she's done with this bravery and say, I knew your grandmother. She's probably turning in her grave right now. Folks, this isn't about protest and danger and fear. These kids are not afraid. And if they are afraid, that's our parents. That's on the parent. That's on the way we speak to our kids and the way we comfort them at night and let them know this is not something to be scared of. It's not okay for an adult to try to take away the courage this little girl just had to come up here. It's not okay to be so cutting, to talk about her dead grandmother, to somehow feel justice that this girl said something that he did not like. You guys, we gotta be better. Protests are good. Diversity is good with unity. There's nothing united about this. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Why gold? I only have the first initial, gold. I believe Mr. Berkman, we already heard from as it related to the WXXI lights. The next name I have is simply Rohach. Mr. or Ms., is there someone named Rohach here, signed in to speak?
Oh, that was Nelia. Oh, I'm sorry. That was Nelia Rotach? She was here earlier. She may have left.
Okay. Jennifer Cherlin? And then Jason Gibbs. And Jason is the last person to have signed in.
How long do I have?
3 minutes.
Okay. I gotta start silver. This is my song. Here we go. We are coming, hear our song, song of mourning about what is going on. Children are dying, they're so afraid. Refugees surviving, how life has gone astray. Homeless and displaced, thousands to be freed. Tears on the face, the streams of refugees. I am calling, hear my song, a song of mourning about what is going on. We are coming, ceasefire we need. We are coming, past time will be free. Clamoring for freedom, ceasefire now. Freedom's always coming, peace forevermore. I am calling, hear my song, a song of mourning about what is going on. This world's surviving now by the hands of the elite. Where will they lead us in the promise of security. We are coming.
30 seconds.
Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to go to the people who signed up or who are on our Zoom. No, we're going to go to the people who are on our Zoom. As I said at the very beginning, we're going to give those people an opportunity. If there are still more people who signed up after the meeting started, but he signed up. He's the last person on the list, yes. So I know Bridget is monitoring the Zoom. If there's anyone that is on the Zoom that would like to speak during the open forum, I need you to use the raised hand function. We do have a couple of people that have joined the Zoom while we've been meeting here. If any of you would like to speak, please use the raised hand function. You will be unmuted and you will be allowed to speak. But I don't see anybody using the raised hand function. So you're still there. If you change your mind and would like to speak, that's fine, but we will go to Jason Gibbs. Mr. Gibbs?
Hello. My name's Jason. I live in Brighton. I've been living here for almost 2 years now. As a person of color, I appreciate, the incentive towards, diversity and inclusion, free speech and things like that. As somebody living in Brighton and who has I have a black girlfriend, I have a family here who's black, there's a lot that goes into that. I hope that, the, inclusion of free speech, the inclusion of everyone's voices, whether they're, on either side of how they feel, that the right to protest, the right to express, not liking protesting, all that stuff gets protected throughout history, especially as a black individual. Speeches, protests, things like that do get suppressed. I think that, it's important to take parents into consideration, but as well as everybody. I think everybody living here has very strong opinions, and, I hope that people who look like me, who think like other folks like myself, are able to have their voices heard as well. It was my first town hall, so, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to hear how everyone else feels in the community. I've only been getting more involved more recently. I think everybody has very strong opinions, and I think that's great. We're all human, we all have empathy, we all have our own strong feelings. I just think that everybody needs equal rights to do what they need to do, and that, restrictions that can cause harm are 100% put in place, but the ones that, don't cause that are taken with a lot of consideration, especially throughout history, especially black history and black protest and black activism and things like that, where it has been used to suppress voices, that's at least in consideration. As somebody who researches that kind of stuff and has a lot of black family who's told me about things like that. But yeah, thank y'all. I appreciate y'all listening. I appreciate everybody here for being here. And I hope everybody has a great night. And thank everybody.
Thank you. We don't have anybody else signed up. I still see none of the people who are here on Zoom raising their hands. If there's anybody, I may regret saying this. If there's anyone who has, well, if I need you to sign, if you haven't spoken yet, I need you to sign up at the desk. No, go ahead. Come on. If you're the, come on up. Come on up. I do.
Good evening. I want to thank the board for...
if you don't mind, if you would state your name and...
Oh, yes, sorry. My name is Pamela Kim Adams. I'm a Brighton resident. My family's been in Brighton a long time. My father grew up in Brighton. He still resides in Brighton. I graduated from Brighton. I have one sister who graduated from Brighton, still living in Brighton. I have 3 nieces in Brighton and 1 nephew who will be in Brighton, and I have a daughter who graduated from Brighton. So we're very entrenched in Brighton. I have just 2 simple statements, aside from thanking the board for not enacting a policy change with regard to protests at 12 Corners. The first statement, I think I first heard this during the BLM protests, which is that if Black kids are being killed, harassed, and so on, white kids have, the responsibility to hear about it. And I think the same is true if kids in Palestine, Israel, Gaza are going through the things that they're going through. Kids in Brighton should know about it. Let's not teach our kids to, be so fragile that they can't even know about the horrors that other kids are experiencing. And my second comment is, my daughter's 22. I'm very proud of her. She graduated with very good grades. She was involved in numerous activities. She graduated in 3 years from American University. She's now at U of R in a school counseling master's program. And, the thing I'm most proud of when I think of her is that I believe if she saw that somebody's rights were being limited or taken away or they were being hurt, that she would speak up. And I think we have to continue to teach Brighton students that that is actually the most important aspect of education and of life and living in a community like Brighton. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We do have one speaker on Zoom that has raised her hand. So if you would like to speak, I believe you can now unmute yourself and go ahead and speak. Yale? Go ahead. Steve, not hearing her.
Yeah, it should be better.
Okay. But can you try to speak? We're not hearing. All right, Steve, if you don't mind continuing to try to, or Steve or Bridget, try to figure out why we're not hearing that speaker on Zoom. But in the meantime, just to keep things moving, I'm going to call on Eli Futterman.
My name's Eli Futterman, and I've been a lifetime resident in the town of Brighton, other than my 4 years in college. I sat next to Jason this evening. I didn't know where he stood on this topic. He probably didn't know where I stood on this topic. And what I would ask the town board to look at, after listening to everyone speak, the issue is people are going to have passion on this issue. Some people think that what's happening in the state of Israel is wrong to the people of Gaza, and the people of Gaza and the supporters of people of Gaza feel that Israel is wrong. There are differences of opinions. I think what people want is the safety issue for the town board to look at. I don't want to see suppression of public speaking, but what I do want to make sure is that there's safe public speaking. And crowds can become more difficult and harder to control. And when I listen to people, all that people are asking for is just some common sense rules as to when people can present their protests to the town of Brighton. And I find it hard to believe that the city or the town board doesn't want to take steps to ensure that we're not here at somebody, God forbid's, funeral because something got out of control, which could happen. I mean, if you go downstate, they separate where protests can happen. They're not saying you can't protest, and I don't want us ever to be in a state or a country where you can't protest. We just need to be smarter, and we ask you, as a member, a lifelong resident of Brighton, to try and come up with, to make both sides happy, which means both sides will be unhappy, okay? By definition. In business, there's usually somebody who's happy and unhappy at the same time. And the town board can take steps to make sure that those that are pro-Palestinian and those that are pro-Israelis, Israel situation, can be equally unhappy and make sure that they are safe for our children. Because that's what I've heard over and over again by people here. I've listened now for almost 2 hours, and what people want to make sure is that the police are not put in a position where they're going to have to make a decision that they have to arrest somebody because they were intermingled. You could have peaceful demonstrations and protect our children, and that's what I've heard, Supervisor. And I ask that instead of taking the position that we don't want to make any decisions and we're just going to try and live bygone by bygone, that we take and put some rules in place that protect our children and protect our community. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Steve? Right now, yeah, okay, yeah, can you hear us? We cannot hear you. I hear a hum. I don't know what's, okay, Josh Peterson is our next speaker here in the room.
Thanks, Bill. I've been a lifelong Brighton resident, other than being out of town for a few years for college and law school. And, you know, much as Eli said, I think my comments might irritate everybody in the room a little bit. You know, I'm generally against restrictions on speech, particularly in public. And if the board decides to go with any part of the plan, I think it needs to be extremely narrowly tailored to only focus on school hours and be completely content neutral. And, you know, I worry as a taxpayer, frankly, that you're opening yourself up to potential litigation if the regulations aren't properly tailored, and even if you win the case. On the second point, I really think that the town needs to acknowledge in a better fashion, and this goes back to the initial protests in October outside of Bagel Land, if you remember the gentleman in the truck, on the back of the truck. These protests are happening in Brighton for a reason why they're not happening in Pittsford or Henrietta or Webster or Greece. Nobody's saying that Greece school children need to learn about this. They're saying Brighton school children do. Why? Because this is where the Jews live. There's an anti-Semitic position to the fact that the protests are happening in Brighton. There is a targeting of the Jewish community for the protests. You want to protest outside of the Jewish Federation? I've got no problem with that, and I think most people in the room would have no problem with that. That's a professional organization, adults. You protest in front of a bagel store, or a synagogue, or a school full of Jewish kids, that's a different story. That's patently anti-Semitic, and I think that the board needs to look into acknowledging that at the very least. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know that we're getting anything. I will just say to the folks that are on Zoom, I apologize that we appear to be having some technical issues. I've looked at the computer here, the volume is on. If we are not able to hear from you, we do welcome your written communication to us, just as communications were entered into the record tonight. Your communication will be entered into the record of our next meeting, but I'm a little disappointed that we haven't been able to fix whatever the technical problem is. We have one more speaker who has signed up, Dr. Ramadas.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I'm a professor of University of Rochester. I'm a co-director
of the diversity, equity, and inclusion of University of Rochester. I'm a father of 4 kids that go into school in Brighton. I'm here to deliver a very clear message to leave our kids out of it. I would like to you guys to consider changing the policy of protesting in the town of Brighton. This is not by accident that we have 2 victims in 12 Corner within 48 hours. One disclosure, I was one of the guys that was protesting against the pro-Palestinian, holding American flag in my hand. Found myself after 25 minutes surrounded by about 100 people around me, would circle me with a circle of police officers. I felt threat, I felt fear, and thanks to Officer Cadoli, he was actually help us and escrow all of us to the car because he feel unsafe and threatening for all of us. So I think I want to state again that I think the policy should be changed. Second things, I want to talk about this platform. I'm not sure why the citizens of Brighton don't get a priority to speak here over here, since we are paying the taxes as we are living in these towns, and what people that are living outside of Brighton, and like my previous colleague said, people that are presenting anti-Semitic ideas are here presenting the idea. That's all. Thank you for your time. Have a good night.
Thank you. I have nobody else signed up to speak. Is there anyone else that would like, and again, I'll just say I am really disappointed that we seem to be having a technical issue. Oh, I see. Bridget has reached out to the individual to try to get a phone number. If we're able to solve this while our meeting is still going on, we will certainly allow that person to speak during the open forum. But let me just, is there any, yes, sir. Have you spoken yet? No. Okay. Come on up again, if you would, please state your name and address.
Dmitry Shapiro.
I'm sorry, Dimitri Shapiro, did you say?
Yes.
Thank you.
It's the first time I'm here in this hall, although I live in Brighton for 30 years and have 2 kids graduated from Brighton High School. I was in the both counter-protest in 12 Corners holding Israeli flag. And this mostly peaceful pro-Palestinian protest, but along the line with, ceasefire, and it was several statements that makes it not so peaceful. When people chatting intifada, intifada in large group, that's not a peaceful protest. It's a call to kill Jews, blow up buses, restaurants, gathering people. That's one thing. From the river to the sea, it's a common chat. It's not a call for ceasefire. It's a call to eliminate Jewish state and get rid of Jewish people in this area. And as a Brighton resident, as many other Brighton residents, I do have connection to Israel. I have relatives there, and they hiding in bomb shelters. And that's really what I want you to know. I'm also for the right for peaceful protest, and I, of course, don't want it to be in the busy area of 12 Corners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that hasn't spoken that would like to speak during the open forum? I want to thank everybody that was here tonight. 99% of the time, you kept things controlled, and I do appreciate that. We will continue on unless there is anybody else that would like to speak during the open forum. Again, I'll say we always take written comments, but we will especially take written comments from anybody who was on the Zoom that was not able to get in. With that, we'll continue with the agenda. You're welcome to stay, but don't feel that you have to. Chris, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Bill, I move to approve the agenda.
Second?
Any discussion? No. I'm sorry, what? Oh, take a break? We certainly, the agenda's fairly short tonight, and we've got a public hearing. If we're
Just wanted to throw it out.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
But,
If any restrooms or anything.
oh, well, if anybody needs a restroom break, we can certainly do that. Yeah, point of personal privilege, we will take a quick break. Thank you.
Much thanks.
There but four. We will reconvene in 5 minutes.
You got it.
Okay, thanks, everybody. We're back from our break. When we took the break, we had a motion pending. It was a motion made by Councilmember Werner, seconded by Councilmember Wilt to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll on that motion.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Now, public hearings. We have two public hearings on the agenda tonight. One is, well, we've heard this before, but this is the first hearing is the continuation of the public hearing on the incentive zoning proposal for a Topgolf sports and entertainment facility near the corner of East Henrietta Road and Westfall Road. This motion, this public hearing was tabled at our last meeting. Can I have a motion to remove this matter from the table? Councilmember Werner?
Bill, I move that we remove the public hearing on the proposed incentive zoning application for Topgolf from tonight's agenda.
No, from the table.
From the
Table.
Yeah, we're bringing it back onto the agenda.
We're removing it from the table.
We're removing it from the table so we can conduct reopen the public hearing tonight.
I would like to it be removed from the table so we can reopen the public hearing.
Can I have a second? Thank you. I don't believe a motion to remove from the table is subject to discussion, so Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye, so that public hearing is again open. We have been advised just before the meeting, again, that Developers Council does not have any additional information from the New York State DEC concerning the environmental condition of the property, which is why they're not here. I anticipate hear anybody that's speaking tonight and then continue the public hearing, table it again until the next meeting. But with the public hearing open, I will ask, is there anybody that would like to address the board at this time concerning the public hearing on the proposed Topgolf sports entertainment facility incentive zoning? Hearing none, again, I will ask for a motion to table this public hearing until our next meeting when they really think they're going to have something for us.
I move that we table the matter of the proposed incentive zoning and rezoning application for Topgolf at East Henrietta Road until our next meeting on March 13th at 7 p.m.
Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Our second public hearing tonight concerns the proposed removal and replacement. We've got a lot of trees to be considered under Chapter 175 of the code. Those are trees. Well, first I'm just going to ask Dan, has the necessary legal notice been given so I don't have to read this list of trees too many times?
Yes, Supervisor, it was in the February 5th edition of the Daily Record.
And communications were sent to...
My understanding is communications were sent by
Thank
DPW.
you. Then I declare this public hearing to be open concerning the removal and replacement of a 32-inch eastern white pine adjacent to 182 Palmerston Road, a 50-inch Norway maple at 217 Alamo Drive, a 36-inch Norway spruce at on the cul-de-sac at the end of Commodore Parkway, a 48-inch black walnut adjacent to 245 and 259 Ashbourne Road, a 60-inch silver maple at Southland Drive, a 30-inch maple at 41 Southland Drive, a 46-inch silver maple at 246 Mayflower Drive, a 40-inch silver maple at 56 Model Lane, a 42-inch silver maple at 65 Hollywood Avenue, a 48-inch silver maple at 26 Willowdale Drive, a 40-inch Norway maple at 916 South Grosvenor Road, and a 30-inch Norway maple at 68 Brook Lawn Drive. Please don't ask me to read through that list again. I know when we set the public hearing, we had an extensive set of reports and the like concerning these trees. Is there anyone here to discuss, to speak to the public hearing on any or all of these trees, all of which are proposed for removal and replacement? Is there anyone on Zoom? If so, please use the raised hand function on Zoom. Hearing none, I declare this public hearing to be closed. Robin, if I could get a motion, please?
Certainly. On the matter of the removal and replacement
Of a whole bunch of trees. Previously read.
of the list of trees previously read, I move that we I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Any discussion? Dan, we have a motion.
I thought that list was way longer. I apologize.
We have a motion from Robin, seconded by Christine. And hearing no discussions, if Dan, would you please call the roll on that matter?
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailer?
Aye. And that ends our public hearings. Thank you very much for sticking with us tonight. Communications. Can I have a motion to receive and file communications?
I move that we receive and file the communications.
Second.
Couple things. I specifically, there are several that do relate to the topics that we've discussed earlier tonight. From Reverend Jim Swartz, from Noah Morgenstern, and that communication from Mr. Morgenstern was shared in substantially identical form by 38 other individuals, one from Julie Gelfand and one from the Rochester chapter of Jewish Voice for Peace. But there are also a couple items of communication concerning other matters. One I really don't like at all, but I'm going to read it all. As I approach my last day of service with the town of Brighton, this is not for me, by the way, I would like to personally thank you for the many years of unwavering support you've offered me and the entire police department. It has been a true honor and privilege to work for the town of Brighton, the residents of this great community, and the Brighton Police Department. I am eternally grateful for this noble career in law enforcement and the opportunity to serve and protect the citizens of Brighton. My family and I wish you continued success and thank you again for everything. I will always call Brighton my home and will truly miss everyone. Kind regards, Deputy Chief Michael R. Desane. Chief Desane has been such an asset to the department, to the community. Some people have that right personality for working with people. Mike Desane has it. Chief Mike Desane has it. He's a pro, and we are, as much as he says he's going to miss everybody, Chief, we're going to miss you a whole lot more. Chief Cathaldi, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I do. Like I said last week, he's going to be sorely missed, and we've worked. I was kind of reflecting today, and we've worked an awful long time together, over 25 years. He came on the job just a few years before me, and he's going to be sorely missed. I wish him all the best. He has done an awful lot for this community, this police department. And more importantly, he's been a good friend and confidant to me. Contrary to popular belief, being the chief of police is not always a fun, easy job, and very few of us reach that status, and without him, I wouldn't have the success that I have. So I thank him very much and wish him all the best in his endeavors.
Hey, Bill, if I might say, it was my pleasure to first meet Mike DeSane at the first official event that I attended for Brighton, and that was the police recognition dinner. And I came in a total stranger to the town board and the town government, walked into the room, and Mike DeSane stepped away from the bar and walked right up to me and congratulated me on my service, just beginning with the town, and made me feel very welcome, and established that first connection with the police department as a member of the town board here. And I've always appreciated that and was extremely impressed by that. And that was typical of Mike DeSane.
Indeed. Okay. The next communication I want to specifically reference is from Elizabeth Shannon. And I'm going to read this one too, partly because one of the officers she references was here this evening. This was sent last week. Hello, this evening around 10 p.m. I had the opportunity to interface with some of the Brighton Police Department officers who responded to a mental health emergency. This is the matter that I referenced in my State of the Town address. And so help me. I went back and looked, and sure enough, last year we also received a real solid letter of support for how the police department handled a mental health emergency. So she goes on to say, I had the opportunity to interface with some of the Brighton Police Department officers who responded to a mental health emergency that was happening unrelated to me, but in front of my house. By sheer coincidence, I was arriving home from work to see this unfolding, and since my career is in psychiatry, I recognized the situation for what it was and what interventions were needed. The officers who responded were thoroughly professional and kind in their interactions with myself, as well as the young man who was behaving remarkably inappropriately and his friend who was quite scared and overwhelmed. As an advocate for those experiencing a mental health crisis, and in my own professional involvement with EMS and working with CPEP at the U of R Medical Center for almost a decade, and is that the U of the CPEP? You know what college?
It's CPEP. The acronym escapes me.
Okay. But she goes on to say, I've seen many police and EMS providers fall short in these situations, and I was incredibly proud to be a Brighton resident and see firsthand their choices in managing this situation. I also regret that I was not able to, in that moment, tell Officer Darrell Wilcox, Jr., who is here tonight, that I'm deeply sorry the young man chose to use racial slurs when speaking with him. I do not know what Officer Wilcox's internal reaction to those words were, but his outward actions conveyed nothing but respect for the individual and even some compassion for this young person's state of mind. I don't know if he is aware, but that young man addressed me the same way, and I'm a white woman. So perhaps there isn't hate in his heart so much as a missing filter. An explanation is still not an excuse, but I share it in case this information makes any difference to Officer Wilcox. I did not catch the name of the first officer to respond to the scene, but I also want to note he is an asset to the team, and I do believe his initial interactions with myself and the young man set the tone for the entire call, significantly contributing to the safe outcomes we all experienced. Please pass along my thanks to this team. We never hope to need the police, but how wonderful to know that there are the kinds of people we can look forward to being there when there is such a necessity. So I'm really grateful to hear that, and that it was a situation that resolved itself in a good way. Speaking of a good way, thanks to Councilmember Corrado, we have a letter here from the Levine Center to End Hate. And around Valentine's Day, they initiated a Lovegram program. And I understand that Councilmember Corrado made a couple of requests, identified a couple of different groups or individuals deserving of a lovegram. But in this case, the lovegram came thanking the staff at the Public Works and Highway Department of the town of Brighton. And I'll just read real quickly. This lovegram is proudly presented to you for being worthy of love and praise, giving your all to life, and generally being amazing human beings that deserve recognition and acknowledgement. Our town is more beautiful, our roadways are safer, our trail network is growing, and our built environment is ever more people-oriented, thanks to the outstanding people of the Town of Brighton Public Works and Highway Department. You all truly embody the best of public service. Thank you. On behalf of Christine Corrado, in love and solidarity from the Levine Center to End Hate staff. So Christine, thank you for the indirect shout out to them. Thank you to the Levine Center for recognizing, again, some of those unsung heroes in our community. It's a great thing to see. Finally, the last communication is our quarterly report on sales tax receipts from the Comptroller of Monroe County. Indicates that our share of fourth quarter 2023 sales tax was $1,515,997.42. This was slightly less than our sales tax receipts for the same quarter in 2022, largely a function of the, you'll recall that in the second quarter, there was an adjustment made based on the formula in the Moore and Ryan sales tax calculation that involved a credited repayment, not just from the town of Brighton, but from all of the taxing jurisdictions, the local taxing jurisdictions. In our case, that was 33,000, a little over 33,000. If you would put that back in, the receipts are almost identical, just down a little bit. Our receipts were up last year, and our receipts were significantly above budget last year. But as we all know, sales tax receipts are subject to the economy and weather and all sorts of things. So we'll, as we always do, we'll be reporting back to you quarterly on the sales tax information. We also get that information monthly from the Comptroller's office, although that's just on a county-wide basis. Earl, anything else you want to add?
No, I just reiterate that it did include that one correction piece, so it would have been a little bit higher if we exclude that correction.
Okay, and with all of those, we have a motion made by Robin and seconded by Christine, I think, to receive and file all of those communications. Any further commentary on any of them? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll to receive and file.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman?
Aye.
Supervisor Allen?
Aye. Committee reports. Robin, Community Services.
Certainly, Bill, the February 2024 meeting of the Community Services Committee was canceled, so the committee has not met in the intervening timeframe since our last town board meeting. I do, as usual, have a few quick updates from our Parks and Recreation Department heads. From our Parks Department, the Parks Department wishes to issue a gentle reminder that despite the unseasonably warm weather, which seems to have disappeared, our park facilities will remain winterized for the duration of the winter season. With the gusting winds, park crews are engaged in extensive storm debris pickup at all sites and on all trails in the community. The department is busy setting up 2024 service contracts, bids, maintenance projects, and equipment and supply requests. They are once again reevaluating maintenance standards for all parks and other properties maintained by the Parks Department, as those within the department strive to continue to try to efficiently use our time, resources, and efforts. At the end of January 2024, field use policies and procedures were sent to all groups who utilize town athletic fields. Staff is also currently building new park picnic tables to replace the ones that have deteriorated at all sites. And at Brighton Town Park, staff is busy removing the playground, which was installed in 1998 to prep the area for the new playground installation. The new playground should have been delivered today, but will not be immediately installed. We will keep the public up to date as that work continues. And at Buckland Park, the lodge will be closing down during a week in March to complete some extensive maintenance repairs and tasks, including replacement of the problematic crank-style windows. We're also upgrading an electrical disconnect to be utilized as a power source for future events and programs, including the April 8th Bright On, Bright Off Total Solar Eclipse event. Then from our Recreation Department, we have some exciting upcoming spring events. The Brickyard Trail Art Exhibition is occurring at the Buckland Farmhouse, 1341 Westfall Road, on March 9th, 10th, 16th, 17th, 23rd, and 24th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. The Friends of the Brickyard Trail and the Town of Brighton are co-sponsoring this exciting art exhibition to celebrate the Brickyard Trail in the Sandra Frankel Nature Park. The show is free and open to the public. Kickoff remarks will take place at noon on March 9th at the historic Buckland Farmhouse. In addition to that, we have upcoming Family Springo Night, which will take place on Friday, March 15th from 6 to 7 p.m. Come hang out with the family for a fun night of celebrating the arrival of spring, the solar eclipse, and St. Patrick's Day with bingo or Springo. We also have our Brickyard Solar Eclipse Bunny Trail opening on March 22nd. Hop along with us for our springtime solar eclipse themed bunny scavenger hunt along the Brickyard Trail. And of course, our Bright On, Bright Off Total Solar Eclipse event will be at Buckland Park on Monday, April 8th from 1 to 5 p.m., where you can join us for an afternoon of music and fun as we experience this once-in-a-lifetime total solar eclipse as a community. Full event details for all of the aforementioned events are available online at the Town of Brighton Recreation website, which is www.townofbrighton.org/rec, R-E-C. And our next meeting of the Community Services Committee will be on Wednesday, March 20th at 9:30 a.m. or immediately following our Finance and Administrative Services Committee meeting at the Brighton Recreation Center multipurpose room. Please access the Recreation Department through the Winton Road entrance. As always, members of the public are invited and encouraged to attend.
Thanks, Robin. Finance and Administrative Services, which maybe you're giving too.
Yes, in Nate's absence, I did chair the Finance and Administrative Services Committee meeting, which took place last Thursday, February 22nd. A different day. Each of the items discussed in committee will be appearing on tonight's town board agenda and will be discussed in greater detail. In particular, we did spend quite a bit of time discussing the request for the town board to approve the assessor's department to perform a town-wide revaluation process starting in 2024 to be completed in 2025, which is necessary because the town equalization rate has dropped to 70% for 2023 and is forecasted to be closer to 60% in calendar 2024. The next meeting of the Finance and Administrative Services Committee will be next Wednesday, March 6th at 8:30 a.m. in the main auditorium at Brighton Town Hall. Members of the public, again, are invited and encouraged to attend.
Thank you. Public Safety, Chris.
Bill, I believe Councilmember Salzman reported on the Public Safety Services Committee meeting for February at our last town board meeting. Our next meeting will be March 12th at 8 o'clock a.m.
Thank you. Christine, Public Works.
And Public Works has not met since our last town board meeting, so the next meeting will be Tuesday morning, March 12th, immediately following Public Safety, or at 9 o'clock, whichever comes second.
Thank you. Old business. Nate.
Yeah, Bill, I'd like to Let's see, the next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to enter into an agreement with T.Y. Lin Consulting Services by Everett Garcia on an as-needed basis effective immediately through December 31st, 2024. But I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second?
As you recall, we did hold this one. This is simply our former commissioner and his current firm. Should Jim Sprague, our new Commissioner of Public Works, have need for consulting services on an as-needed basis, under this agreement, we will have a vehicle for doing so. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. New business, Nate, reading and approval of claims.
Yes. Earlier today, I reviewed claims totaling $9,570,481.39. Notable claims include the Inex Architecture. We talked about the HVAC system. So they are preparing an evaluation for a green HVAC system. Speaking of green, Collier's Engineering and Design, we did a payment for professional services on the multiversity plan. That's not the multiverse, that's the multiversity plan. I got to correct myself from last time. But if you're wondering why the payments were so high, that's because we have payments to the Brighton Fire District. That was a final payment for the 2024 real property taxes that were collected during 2024. And also the Henrietta Fire District, the final payment for 2024 real property taxes collected during 2024. So the claims all appear to be in order, and I move for them to be approved.
Second?
Yeah, we are effectively, really a pass-through for those. We collect the taxes and then remit them to the two fire departments. So it does result in sort of an artificial but very, very large-looking bump.
Yes.
Late in the tax cycle at the start of every year. Nate, since we're talking about the budget, why don't you do the next one too?
Excellent. Well, did we approve?
We need to.
Oh, we need to vote. Yes,
Yeah,
we do need to vote on that one. Sorry, thank you for catching that. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Nate,
Yes.
carry on.
The next matter seeks to approve the 2023 budget transfers and appropriations and the related reappropriations to the 2024 budget for approved grants and other projects not yet completed. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second?
You have the list of those projects that are attached. These are all, and most of them are matters where ongoing projects that are being funded by grants. Although in at least one case, we have some highway equipment as well that's simply, just a timing issue.
If we have a PO open, that will automatically roll over into next year. So these are to handle the cases where we do not have a.
Okay. Much clearer explanation. Thanks. Any further discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Christine.
Yes, the next matter seeks to authorize budget amendments transferring $2,345 from the Highway Department's Maintenance Repair Service account to the Office Equipment account and $1,155 from the Sewer Department's Equipment Rental account to the Office Equipment account for the purchase of an ice machine. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
Obviously, the Highway and Sewer Department workers spend a lot of time down there. It is important that they have the ability to, keep things iced. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Nate?
The next matter seeks to approve the townwide revaluation project. Let's see, see resolution number 5 and letter dated February 15th, 2024 from Pamela Post, the town assessor. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney. Attorney to the town.
Yes, second.
Sorry, John.
So as...
No problem.
We did, as was noted, we spent a lot of time talking about this. Interestingly enough, this is not something that every jurisdiction actually takes to their council to vote on, but we think it's important. This is the cornerstone of making sure that the property tax collection system in Brighton and in any other community is done fairly and accurately according to the fair market value of all the properties. And when real estate values have gone up as much as they have, we would be hurting our senior citizens and others in the community if we did not promptly conduct a revaluation. So that's the reason for this. It will be an ongoing project, and you know, I think it's being done in a cost-effective and very resident-friendly way. So,
if I may add, we are not the only community going through this process right now. So Brighton is doing the right thing, and we are not alone in doing that. Henrietta, City of Rochester are two that are going through this exercise.
and several others went through it last year.
Right.
And our target percentage of full value is?
100%. You always want to...
You want to be as close to 100 as you can,
100%.
but we usually trigger at what, 96?
Well, no, we've in the past looked at 90% and a corresponding ratio in the coefficient of dispersion, which is a ratio that measures how far removed from the mean the prices are. You know, it's one thing if every house is exactly 10% below its fair market value, well, that's a little bit easier and becomes less of a fairness issue. But if this house is at half of its fair market value, and this house over here is 10% above, and then there's another 5 or 10 that are, then you have people that are really being treated disparately. And when both of those get significantly out of whack, and last year, yes, we went from 89% to 70%, the largest, that I had seen. We looked at it, you'll recall, we made a decision. We were looking at interest rates. We knew interest rates were going up. We didn't know whether that was going to hold prices down. What's been clear is that they have not. Prices in Brighton continue to rise. Supply of houses is very, very small. So we think it's important, and I know Pam thinks it's important that we conduct the reval now. Okay, we have a motion seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Robin?
Certainly, the next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to enter into an agreement with Arbor Review for the provision of tree consulting services in an amount not to exceed $3,000 for calendar year 2024, with the option of 3 one-year renewals with increases not to exceed 3.5%. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Any discussion? Of course, this is part of our Tree City programming. Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Christine?
The next matter seeks to award a bid contract to Birchcrest Tree and Landscape for the provision of a bucket truck and qualified operator at an hourly rate of $223, not to exceed a total amount of $35,942 for calendar year 2024. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
Again, part of our management of our tree canopy and our Tree City USA. Discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailer?
Aye. Nate?
The next matter seeks to award a bid contract to the Mayor Paint and Hardware for the provision hardware at a 15% discount for calendar year 2024 with the option of 4 one-year renewals. And I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Again, this is something that we have done for many years. We go out. Mayor has been successful in making a similar proposal for a number of years. I don't know why there aren't other hardware stores that do, but they're a convenient location. They're obviously just over the border into the city, but they've been a good partner with our folks over the years. Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Were it not for annexation, it would be in Brighton.
True that.
That's true.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailer?
Aye. Chris?
Next item, Bill, is to set a public hearing and declare the town board's intent to act as lead agency under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act for proposed modifications to the approved incentive zoning application for the Jewish Senior Life Campus at 2021 Winton Road South. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
Again, as I referenced in the State of the Town message, Jewish Senior Life has submitted an application. Actually, it's technically a modification of a pre-existing incentive zoning approval for the campus. It has been modified a couple of times over the years, but this is our standard declaration of our intent to act as lead agency for the seeker review and various other specific matters relating to that, including specifically setting a public hearing on April 10th. John, anything else you want to?
No, under the incentive zoning law, this is a necessary step in terms of determining whether or not an amendment to the already existing incentive zoning should occur. So the public hearing will be established under the town code, and then because of the nature of the changes, the town will have to redesignate itself as lead agency under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, and we will also be directing staff to publish appropriate notice and make the referral to the county.
Thank you. Who seconded that motion?
I did.
Christine?
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailer?
Aye. Robin, the last one.
Certainly, the final matter seeks to approve the employment of Smarlin Espino as planning technician in the Department of Public Works. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This is an opening we've been trying to fill, and the department feels very good about this hire. In particular, he is Spanish-English bilingual, which is certainly helpful. And we're looking to bring him in like immediately. Actually, technically this is.
She started Monday.
That's right. Started on Monday.
And the department will be fully staffed?
Yes, they will.
In quite a number of years, so it's wonderful.
Okay. Anything further?
One correction, Smarlin prefers they, them. And-
Oh,
yes.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I did
Thank
not
you.
know that. Then, hearing nothing further, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailer?
Aye. Matters of the supervisor. Not at 20 after 10. Matters of the attorney to the town.
Nothing to report.
Matters of the town clerk.
Well, since nobody else. No, just a couple of notes regarding the collection. Just as a reminder, for anybody still watching at this point, March 1st, this Friday, is the deadline for applying for any exemptions with the assessor's office. So if you have anyone in your life who is eligible or you think may be eligible, don't wait. Literally call tomorrow and make sure and get that in, because that can be some significant savings, particularly for our senior population. Typically are the ones who are eligible for a lot of this. As well as, certainly there are some other some disabilities exemptions and veterans exemptions. So there's a small clergy exemption that exists as well. So if anything that's out there, just make sure you don't miss that deadline. There's always somebody that comes just late, and it's the assessor's office traditionally, they've just felt awful that when you just can't get it in or find any way to tie it back to legally accept it as timely, but that is there. And then looking forward to the third installment of town and county taxes. March 30th falls on a Sunday, so the next business day will be accepted as timely. However, a lot of people usually come on the Friday when that happens. This year, Town Hall is closed on March 29th for their spring holiday. So I've got signs up in the office and around, but in the website, I'm worried about that day, quite honestly, and the number of people that are going to come in and get to the door and then leave. So
the drop box will be
We've got the drop boxes, but it's going to be an issue. So I just want to try to get the message out the best I can, just to make sure folks know that if you want to pay before the date, Thursday, 28th is your last day. But certainly, obviously, the drop boxes are there 24/7. Well, the door 9 drop box is available 24/7. The one in the public safety lobby is open 9 to 5. And that's that.
Thank you, Dan. Matters of the board. Then can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn, Bill.
Second?
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Councilmember Salzman.
Aye.
Supervisor Malley.
Aye. Even though they did have to leave, I do want to thank our ASL interpreters, and we look to see you back here at our next town board meeting, Wednesday, March 13th at 7 p.m. Have a great evening, everybody.